Welcome to this complete guide for 2026 on the London Black Cab Taxi SERU assessment. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at, first of all, an overview of the test, the different types of questions that are going to come up in the test, and finally sharing with you some tips and strategies on how to prepare for and pass your assessment. So first of all, if you are new to the SERU assessment, if you have no previous knowledge, or maybe you've already taken the assessment before and haven't passed yet, this is the perfect starting place to get a complete understanding of the assessment and what to expect. So the SERU is the Safety, Equality and Regulatory Understanding Assessment, and it was enforced for black cab taxi drivers in 2025 October. So first of all, the test is completely computer-based, meaning it involves no writing, no use of a pen or anything like that. It is based on the Black Cab London Taxi Driver Handbook, which will be given to you in the assessment, and it assesses your ability to read and understand the English language. Of course, the assessments are taken at the TfL Assessment Centres. Now, when do you need to do your test? So for new applicants, first of all, they can take their test at any stage during their knowledge or licensing journey before approval, so they can take it up to stage 5. It is up to them, but ideally they should take it around stage 3, stage 4, up to stage 5. For existing drivers, they will need to pass their SERU prior to renewal. Okay, and the way this works is, once your renewal date approaches, TfL will reach out to you and contact you, inviting you to book your assessment. Okay, now how does this work for renewals? So provided that you complete your renewal pack before your expiry date, TfL will grant you 12 months to continue to work, and in that meantime to pass your SERU assessment. So they're not expecting you to have passed it already before you send off your renewal. You can work for the 12 months and in that time pass your assessment. Okay, so they will be essentially granting you a short-term 12-month license, and they expect you in that 12 months to pass your assessment. That is only if you send off your renewal pack before your expiry. If you don't, then you don't have that 12 months. Okay? For those of you who are keen or who would like to do the test before your renewal, which is a good idea, you can contact TfL to do so. So there is an email that I will put down in the comments. If you reach out to TfL, they can book your assessment for you earlier. It costs £36 for your initial booking, and any resits are £16. Typically, you get your results in 15 days. And the number of attempts you get are essentially unlimited, okay, provided that you attend all of your bookings. Okay, if you fail to show up for bookings with no reasons, that can definitely affect your licensing and your renewals. So you'll have multiple attempts to pass the assessment. Of course, you will need to submit your renewal before your expiry date if you want to continue to work for 12 months whilst you try to pass. Now let's take a look at the format of the test itself. You'll have 60 minutes to answer 36 questions, and you are expected to achieve at least 60% in order to pass. As we mentioned before, it is an open book test, and what this means is they will give you the handbook, the Black Cab Taxi Driver Handbook, which we have linked down in the comments to the free PDF below. They will give you this handbook in a paper format on the day, and you can find the answers for most of the questions using the handbook. I say most of the questions because some of the questions are not based on the handbook, and we're going to take a look at example questions in a few minutes later in this video. So some of the frequently asked questions that we get from students are, first of all, can they take in a pen or a paper or their own handbook to the test? And the answer is no, you're not allowed to take anything into the test at all. They will provide you the handbook, but no pen and paper is allowed. The handbook that they provide you will be large font, so this will make it easier to read for anybody who has trouble with reading. It will be in a larger font than the PDF. And finally, if you run out of time before you answer all 36 questions, any questions that you have already answered are automatically saved. You don't need to worry about losing your answers or anything like that. If you don't get to the end of the test before your time runs out, it is fine. Whichever questions you've already answered will be saved, and you will get the marks for those accordingly. Now, for anybody who has any disability which may affect their ability to pass the test, for example, you may have dyslexia, dyspraxia, other learning disabilities or general disabilities, you can get an adjustment from TfL by contacting them, and they can provide you with extra time. So typically for our previous students, we've seen 20 minutes being provided extra for those students who have learning disabilities that can be substantiated with proof. So now let's take a look at the different types of questions that you can expect in your London Black Cab Taxi Driver SERU assessment. Before we continue, I would like to share some free resources with you that will help you if you're preparing for your Black Cab Taxi SERU assessment. The first is a set of free sample questions that we have made available on our website. You will not need to sign up for an account to access these. You can simply follow the link that we've put in the comments and then click on Start Free Course. You can access these on your mobile phone or on your laptop, whichever you prefer. And in here we've included all of the different types of questions that you will get in the real assessment. So it should give you a good sense of what to expect. And this is a good starting point to gauge how difficult or easy you find the different types of questions. And the second resource that I'd like to share with you is this YouTube playlist that we've compiled containing all of the different Taxi SERU Handbook sections. So for those of you who prefer to listen to or watch videos instead of reading, then this is ideal for you. It covers all of the information in the 12 sections of the handbook, and you can find it on our YouTube channel. Of course, if you're looking for the PDF version of the handbook, we've also put a link to that down in the comments below. So now let's take a look at a couple of examples of the 3 different types of questions that you're going to be seeing in your Black Cab Taxi SERU assessment. So as mentioned, you're going to have 60 minutes to complete 36 different questions. The first 12 questions that you're going to get are going to be of the type called fill in the blanks. And here is what they look like. At the very top, you will always have a section number, and then you will have some instructions that tell you to complete the blanks. You will always have 3 blanks in each question, and each blank has a drop down where you will be able to select the correct answer from 6 options. Okay, so the 6 options are the same for all of the blanks, but only 3 of them are correct. So how should we go about answering these questions? The very first thing that you're going to do is you're going to read some of the sentence or sentences. Not all of them, just enough to understand what it is about. So here this reads, as a blank, you can accept a journey that has been pre-booked through a licensed London private hire operator. So that's enough for me to understand what this question is about. Now what you're going to do is you're going to turn to section 1 in the handbook. So here, of course, I have a PDF version of the handbook, but you will be getting a paper version of the handbook during your assessment. And it is the same as this. You will have a contents page, and the contents page shows you the different sections, all 12 of them, and which pages that you can turn to for that section. So remember, the passage that we just read was about bookings through private hire operators. So if we look in section 1, we've got some subheadings, and I'm going to try to find one that is relevant to what we just read. And I can see here there is a page, private hire bookings, page number 10. So let's turn to that and see if we can find the matching sentence. So here we are, page number 10, and we can see the subheading, private hire bookings. Let's try to compare this sentence here to what we have in the question. So as a licensed taxi driver, you can accept a journey that has been pre-booked through a licensed London private hire operator. So clearly this is the same sentence. Let's try to fill in that blank. So the first one is as a, and in the passage it said licensed taxi driver. You can accept a journey that has been pre-booked through a licensed London private hire operator. Even though it is a private hire journey, you must still start your something blank. Let's turn again to the handbook and find the missing phrase. Even though it is a private hire journey, you must still start your taxi meter. Here we are. However, you can see there are 2 options here. taximeter with a capital T, and then one with a lowercase t. So which one is correct? Exactly as it appears in the handbook. That is the option that we always go with, lowercase t. Now the next one is, if the journey is to start and finish something, the fare charge must be either, and it continues. So let's now look for this missing word. So if the journey is to start and finish within London, so the missing words, missing phrases, within London. So here we go, within London, not outside London, within London. So these are the fill in the blank types of questions. Remember, the key is to first just read a small part of the sentences to understand what it is about, then turn to the section and find the relevant information. Most of the time it is going to be worded word for word. So all you're doing is finding the missing words or phrases and filling them in. Sometimes you will find that they are worded slightly differently. However, the information or the meaning is still found within that section where that topic is. Let's take a look at another example. So again, what I'm going to do is to first read just the beginning of the sentence. All licensed taxis must be fitted with a something card payment device. Let's turn to section 2 and try to find this information. So here this is about card payment devices and them being installed in London licensed taxis. Again, we're going to turn to the contents page, turn into section 2 this time, and we're looking for card payments. So here we go, accepting card payments, page number 12. And we can see again, the second sentence begins with all licensed taxis must be fitted with a TfL approved card payment device installed. So clearly this is the same sentence that we just read. Let's now try to match the sentence to find the blanks. All licensed taxis must be fitted with a TfL approved. So you can see here, TfL approved card payment device installed in the passenger compartment. Installed in the passenger compartment, which is able to produce a something. So let's see what it says. Able to produce a printed receipt on request by the passenger. A printed receipt. Okay, so not paper receipt, printed receipt. That is what is in the handbook. On request by the passenger, you must always use this device to take the, let's take a look at the options that we have. You must always use this device to take the card payment. The answer is card payment. Okay. Now we're going to take a look at the next type of question. So as we said, the first 12 are fill in the blanks. And then from there on, you're going to have 22 multiple choice questions. So these are somewhat similar. At the very top, once again, you're going to see the section number. However, this time round, you'll be given a number of options to select the correct answer from. So let's read the question. A TfL compliance officer stops you and requests proof of licensing. Which items must you produce? Select all that apply. So some of the multiple choice questions that you'll be getting will have 2 correct answers. More than 1 correct answer, 2 correct answers. And where this is the case, you will be explicitly told to select the multiple answers. Okay, so let's turn to section 1 and try to find the information about proof of licensing. Here we go. So section 1, and we've got a number of different subheadings. There's so many. So as you can see, this is why practicing the mock test with the handbook is important, because really and truly 60 minutes to answer 36 questions, which comes out to about 1 minute and 40 seconds per question, is not a lot of time for each question. When you practice the mock tests and use the handbook, you will become familiarized with the different subheadings and the different sections, and you'll be able to find question answers a lot easier. Whereas if you don't do the practice and just go into the test, you may struggle in 1 minute and 40 seconds to find that information. Because as you can see, in section 1, you've got so many different subheadings. And this is the case for a number of sections. So back to the question. We were looking at proof of licensing. So here I'm going to turn to page number 6. And if we look through this section, we can see that the very last paragraph is talking about proof of licensing. please remember that your identifiers are not proof that you are licensed. If you are asked to prove that you are licensed, for example, by a police officer, etc., you must show your license and your badge. Okay, so here what we've been told is that your identifiers are not proof that you are licensed as a black cab taxi driver. So if we look at the options, we can see, first of all, we can definitely ignore identifiers. Personal identifiers are not a proof of licensing. Also, there was no mention of vehicle insurance. That is not relevant. So the two correct answers clearly are your taxi driver license and your taxi driver badge, as mentioned clearly here in the handbook. Your license and your badge. Let's take a look at another example of multiple choice questions. So here, this is about section 1, and it states on which specific holidays will the taximeter automatically add an extra charge to the fare without any action required from you. So this is talking about extra charges to fares. Let's now try to turn to section 1 and find this relevant information. So section 1, and this is to do with extra charges, and we can see here, page number 7, there's a subheading extras. So let's turn to page number 7. The extras you can charge are listed on the fare chart. So if we look at the handbook, we can see on the next page, there is a fare chart here. Okay, so here's the extra fares and a description of how they work. So as we can see, the question was about which days there will be an extra charge to the fare without any action required from you. And you can see here, the taximeter will automatically add this extra to the fare. And the days are Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and New Year's Day. So Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and New Year's Day. All three of those are correct answers. Now, the final type of question that you're going to come across in your assessment are called reading and understanding paragraphs, sometimes referred to as short passage questions. These will be the two last questions in your assessment always. So number 35 and number 36 will be short passage questions. And these are different to the other types of questions that we've looked at, mainly because they are not based on the information in the handbook. So you'll never have the section number at the top. Instead, the question is based on the information in the paragraph that they present to you. This paragraph can be from different sources, such as the TfL website, the TfL Taxi and Private Hire Driver Policy booklet, or TPH notices. Let's take a look at how to answer these questions. The first thing that you're going to do is to read the question. The reason you're going to read the question first and not the paragraph is because the paragraphs can be quite lengthy, and by reading the question you'll be able to pinpoint or identify exactly what information to look for in the lengthy paragraph. So in this example, the question reads, which of the following are exempt from paying the congestion charge? Now you can begin reading the question. It says taxis are exempt from paying the congestion charge, so clearly this is already linked to the question. Taxis are exempt from paying the congestion charge and Blackwall and Silvertown tunnels charges when actively licensed with London Taxi and Private Hire, TPH. A vehicle will be removed from the register of exempt vehicles on the surrender, expiry or revocation of the license. PHVs are not exempt from the congestion charge or other charges. PHV drivers and operators need to pay the charges if they travel in the zone or through the tunnels. So, from this paragraph, we definitely know that PHVs are not exempt, because it says that here clearly. We know that taxis are exempt, and the options that we have are previously licensed taxis or actively licensed taxis. And we can see it says in the first sentence, it is actively licensed with London Taxi and Private Hire. So they have to be actively licensed London taxis, not previously licensed. Let's take a look at another example of reading and understanding paragraph questions. So again, the first thing to do, read the question. Where can a taxi or PHV driver applicant get a COGC from if required? Now you can go ahead and read the paragraph. Any applicant who has lived in a country other than the UK since the age of 18 for one or more continuous periods of 3 months or more in the 10 years preceding the date of application is required to complete a living abroad details form. The applicant will then be asked to produce a Certificate of Good Conduct, COGC, from every relevant country. To obtain a COGC, the applicant should approach the relevant embassy, consulate, or high commission. So the question was, where can they get a COGC from? And so far, the information that we've been given is it should be from every relevant country. Every relevant country meaning the countries that they lived in for 3 months or more. And to obtain the COGC, they should approach the relevant embassy, consulate, or high commission. A translation is required if it is not provided in English. Applicants who need to provide a COGC will need to ensure that they provide proof of its authenticity from the UK embassy. So what this is saying is, if somebody has lived outside of the UK for more than 3 months in the last 10 years before their application, they need to get certificates of good conduct from those countries that they lived in. And where they need to get it from is the embassy, consulate, or high commission of those countries. But to provide proof of its authenticity, they can get that from the UK embassy. The question is asking us where they can get the COGC from. Okay, not proof of authenticity, where they can get the COGC from. So that's why these questions, the reading and understanding paragraph questions, can sometimes be slightly more challenging. It takes a little bit longer to read the question and the paragraph, and also there can be a lot of information to unpack. That is why each of them are worth 2 marks. They're worth more marks because they are slightly more challenging. So back to the question, let's take a look at the options. Option number 1, the embassy of the country they were born in, clearly not relevant, not mentioned here at all. The British embassy. Now, you could make the mistake to say this is the correct answer because the UK embassy was mentioned. However, that is for providing proof of authenticity if need be for the COGC. But to actually obtain the COGC, remember, they need to approach the country that they lived in, the relevant country, the country that they lived in for more than 3 months. So the correct answer here is the third one. Now, before we finish off, I'm going to leave you one final tip. So if you come across a challenging question in your assessment, do not make the mistake of spending too much time on it. This is where students often get caught out. They get stuck on one question or a couple of questions, and they end up spending 5 minutes, 10 minutes on a single question. And what they find is they run out of time before answering the rest of the questions. So in order to avoid that, what I would recommend is, if you come across a question that you are struggling with, is simply flag the question for review. So in our mock tests, we have a review question button, and what that does is it flags it so that when you get to the end of your test, and if you do have time remaining, then you can come back to those questions that you didn't finish that you have flagged. And you have this option also in the real assessment. You have the option to flag a question for review and come back to it. So this way you can ensure you're not wasting too much time. Remember, you have 60 minutes to answer 36 questions, which is roughly 1 minute and 40 seconds on average for each question. So try to stay within the 2 minutes range for questions. Of course, some questions are worth more marks, so you can spend a little bit longer, but avoid spending too much time. Just skip the question, do not stress it, move on and answer the questions that you can, and then you can come back if you have time to answer the remaining questions. So for those of you who are looking for training material to prepare for your Black Cab Taxi SERU test, we have a complete mock test pack containing 15 unique mock tests with all of the different question types. So I'm going to take you through what these mock tests contain and how they work. So each of these mock tests contain 36 questions, and you'll have 60 minutes to answer those questions, just like the real assessment. You will be able to practice each mock test as many times as you need to, and you'll be able to view the answers to those questions as well. So as I mentioned before, it covers all of the different types of questions that you're going to get in the real assessment. This includes, of course, fill in the blanks questions, multiple choice questions, and of course, short passage or reading and understanding paragraph questions as well. The tests are timed just like they will be in the real assessment, and you can move between questions and also flag them for review to come back to them later. You can practice on your mobile phone or on your laptop. If you're wondering whether these mock tests will actually help you to pass the assessment, feel free to go on over to our website and take a look at the results of previous students who have taken the assessment, so you can see some of the recent results that we've uploaded and see how well they've done. Now, we're constantly updating our questions based on the feedback that we get from said students. This way we can ensure that when you go to your assessment, the questions are almost identical to what you've been practicing on our online mock tests. So most students say there's about a 90% similarity. Some of the questions are worded slightly different, but most of the questions are 90% similar. You can also head on over to our Facebook and take a look at what previous students have had to say in the 130 positive reviews that they have left for us. So that's all for this video. Thank you for watching to the end, and if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us on WhatsApp, on our website, or on our landline number, and subscribe to the channel for more videos in the future.